We begin with something slightly more modern than the horse bus that opened the first programme. A reminder of the many and diverse former London types still operational at running days, bus rallies and in day-to-day commercial operation. Thanks to the efforts of preservation groups, individual owners and the London bus operators who see the value of maintaining a heritage fleet. Since the last programme, our cameras have been to several new outer London locations like East Grinstead, Sevenoaks, Alton and Stevenage, and we've discovered lots of new buses and new activity in the central area too. The whole thing comes together now in London Heritage 2. The original iconic London bus, RM1, celebrates its 60th birthday in 2014. Here it's arriving at the London Bus Museum at Brooklands for the 2013 Spring Gathering. RM2116 is 11 years younger. In July, it arrives at the Alton show. RM1955 looks for a parking space at Brooklands. The bus still carries part of the Route 36 branding on its body sides, but going back much further in time, it was one of those delivered with illuminated advertising panels for routes running in central London. At the other end of its working life, it was withdrawn from New Cross Garage in January 2005. The first production RM to be completed, RM8, spent its first 15 years as a test vehicle at London Transport's Chiswick Works, where it became the guinea pig for all manner of modifications. RM9 was also completed before RMs 5, 6 and 7. Here it's running down Caneswood Hill in Weybridge before turning into the Brooklands site. RM1403 was converted to open top in 1984. It visited the North Weald event in July 2011. Since the 2004 Routemaster 50 celebrations, RM1650 has been running around as RM3 and has latterly been part of the Route 9 heritage fleet operated by First London. Here it is at Wisley in April 2012. First sale of its London operations means that the Australian-owned Tower Transit now runs the heritage Routemasters based at Westbourne Park. RM577, here at Showbus 2012, is another silver bus by virtue of carrying the body from RM664, the first experimental unpainted aluminium RM from the 1960s. The so-called Silver Lady ran for 3 years in that condition. RM1990 ended its second working life in Reading and has been preserved in the final livery it carried in Berkshire. This is Farnham Road at Farnham Royal during the 2012 Slough Running Day. RM2208 was one of 12 Routemasters repainted into Shillerbeer livery in 1979 to celebrate the 150th anniversary of the London Omnibus. RM1033 pulls out of Anstey Park, Alton later in the year. This one spent most of its working life at South London garages. RM848 trundles down the taxiway at Duxford in September 2012, one of several vehicles withdrawn from London in 1985 and put to work in other parts of Britain, only to return to the capital 15 years later and spend another 5 years pounding its streets. The rather ugly hopper windows were fitted during the late life refurbishment programme. Compare with the proper hand winder jobs still fitted to the two buses 848 is about to pass. London's other daily heritage route is the 15, from Tower Gateway to Trafalgar Square. RM652 heads along East Cheap and meets RM1933 waiting for the bus gate to open while heading west. RM2050 passes St Paul's Churchyard next to the famous cathedral. RM871 heading in the opposite direction at the same spot. The Route 15 RMs are operated by Stagecoach East London and based at West Ham Garage. RM291 on the A505 heading for Showbus 2012 at Duxford. RM1699 makes for North Weald at speed in July 2013. RM1000 at Brooklands, still carrying its one-off registration number. RM70 arrives at the Alton Rally. Mayor Boris Johnson hired this bus to promote his first campaign in 2008. And yes, I know, it feels as if he's been around much longer than 5 years. Arriva's RM6 climbs Detling Hill on final approach to the Maidstone Showground in April 2013, wearing the gold paint it acquired in 2002 to celebrate the Queen's Golden Jubilee. RM188 passes through check-in at Brooklands. From 1989 to 1995, this one worked for East Yorkshire Motor Services in Hull. 188 is closely followed by RM2116. This bus only lasted in London service for 19 years, but has now clocked up 29 active years on the preservation scene. RM1063 approaches North Weald in July 2011. Two years later, RM298 heads away from North Weald along Merlin Way. RM5 nears Journey's End at Brooklands in April 2013. The 1959 Leyland powered Routemaster prototype, RML3, with its original front end restored, takes a short spin at Brooklands to round off the section. Predating the first Routemaster by a few months, the 84-strong GS type replaced Leyland Cubs on minor country area routes from 1953. GS15, here in Sopwith Drive at Brooklands, completed 15 years in service before withdrawal in 1968, while based at Garston. GS2 only managed 9 years. The bus awaits departure outside the Plough pub at Dormansland during the highly enjoyable East Grinstead running day in April 2013. It's followed along Plough Road by GS15. The London Transport Museum bought GS64 in 1976. Here it's arriving at the Detling Showground in April 2013. GS42 at the Maidstone event. It made its first rally appearance in 1974 and has been out and about ever since. GS2 also appeared at the 2013 Sevenoaks Rally. Here it's descending Amherst Hill in Sevenoaks before heading out to Dunton Green on the A25. GS64 in rural Datchworth, heading for Nebworth during the 2013 Hertford running day. GS34 arrives at and departs from the Plough at Dormansland. This one is owned by the Country Bus Preservation Group, whose members organise the rallies at East Grinstead, Sevenoaks and Hertford. It's going first, isn't it? I want to shop too. GS15 arrives at the London Bus Museum's April 2013 event. 2 months later, GS2 appeared again at Stevenage bus station. GS64 brings the section to a close at Hertford North while en route to Nebworth. Despite its bonnet number and registration plate, this is RMC 1500 and not 1486, although you could write several books about the interchange of RM bodies, A-frames and B-frames. The real 1486, if you can grasp such a concept, is believed to be in Germany. RMC 1461 passes Weybridge Station and picks up train passengers needing a lift to Brooklands. The London Bus Museum owns this vehicle. RMC 1497 rolls into Duxford. This one spent the last 8 years of its LT life as a trainer before preservation in 1987. RMC 1500, or what you will, also took part in the road trips from the Potters Bar Open Day in 2013. This is South Mims, the village, that is, not the service area. .1500 also appeared at the Sevenoaks Bash a month earlier. This is Dunton Green. RMC 1461 pulls away from East Grinstead High Street on an out and back run to Forest Row. RMC 1500 at Hertford North during the June 2013 running day. RF486 kicks off the section recreating Route 212 in February 2013 on the final part of the climb to Muswell Hill Broadway. This bus had been delivered to the local garage for the route 60 years earlier. RF28 approaches East Grinstead High Street from Lewis Road in April 2013. The Routemaster parked in the distance is 938. RF429 descending Amherst Hill in Sevenoaks. The red RS built for central London weren't fitted with doors, of course, because no one expected such a thing in the 1950s. RF308 shows off a selection of destinations at Dormansland. This one was delivered to London Country as RF527 in April 1953, but was renumbered 3 years later when converted for Green Line work. RF406 operated from garages all around London: Sutton, Merton, Hounslow, Bromley, Leyland and Uxbridge. Here it's running along Old London Road in Hertford. RF539 is fitted with the wider one-man operated cab, well, driver's compartment, strictly speaking. This is Potters Bar again, and a trip to Gravely. RF600 runs along Sevenoaks High Street and turns into the bus station. The very active RF486 again, this time running into East Grinstead High Street. A gaggle of RFs at Sevenoaks, or whatever the collective noun is. RF406 leads RF28 past RF600. In the distance is RF226. RF319 at Duxford in September 2012. This bus is now part of Ensign's heritage fleet. RF308 at East Grinstead, heading off to a roundabout on the A22 to turn round. RF633 in Stevenage Old Town in June 2013. RF28 gave visitors a spin around the roads of the Detling Showground in April 2013. RF401 heads for North Weald the following July. RF308 arrives at Turner's Hill from Crawley while en route to East Grinstead. RF539 is bound for Epping in Potters Bar High Street during the 2013 Open Day. RF518 was another renumbering when 3 years old, originally delivered as RF299. Here it is at the show bus arrivals area in September 2012. But we end the section with the bus that began it, RF486, on its special running day in February 2013, this time passing Alexandra Palace while running to Northumberland Park as a 233. RML 2760 completed the Routemaster build in February 1968. Its first garage was Upton Park, where it worked Route 15. After only 4 months it went into store before moving to Aldenham Works to be prepared for a trip to Lille in France in October 1968. Fast forwarding 35 years to 2013, we find the bus at Stagecoach's garage in Rainham, being prepared for handover to the London Bus Museum in Brooklands at the start of a long-term loan. 10 days before the handover, we went to Rainham to gather this footage. The bus returned from France in November 1968 and went on to work from Chalk Farm Garage. After a repaint at Aldenham in December 1970, it moved again, this time to Hanwell, where it stayed for 18 months before another reallocation to Uxbridge. By January 1973, it was back at Hanwell and 2 years later received another overhaul. After release from the works, it returned to Upton Park, where its career began, and stayed there until August 2003 in the ownership of Stagecoach. In November of that year, the bus moved to Bow Garage for its last regular assignment in London, working on Route 8. In June 2004, it went into semi-retirement in the Special Services fleet. For its farewell appearance, Stagecoach organised a running day on the 13th of April, working some of the bus's former routes. The day began with this trip as Route 101 from Galleon's Reach. And here it is, completing the first journey at Wanstead. The return run sets off to Gallions Reach. The second destination was North Woolwich. The bus runs along the approach road to the Woolwich Ferry and passes the old railway terminus. The departure from North Woolwich, heading back to Wanstead. We caught up with it again mid-journey at Wanstead Flats. The next leg took the bus to East Ham to set down its passengers before a lunchtime pause. Here it's pulling out of Wanstead High Street into Cambridge Park. The crew took their lunch break at the now mothballed Upton Park garage, where 2760 posed outside its first home. The afternoon was due to begin with a run into central London over Route 15. First though, the bus was given a check-over, which included topping up the radiator.
So that it? That's it? In that case it does need some.
Disappointing?
No, it's not. I've been soaked in this before now.
It soon became clear that quite a lot of coolant was needed because of a leak. So an engineer was hastily summoned from Raynham to replace a pipe. The repair itself took only 20 minutes, whereupon it was time to top up the Tizer again. Because of the wait for engineers' attention, the bus left about an hour later than scheduled and headed back to East Ham to pick up passengers for the trip into London. We caught up with it again during the afternoon beside the Tower of London, by which time the weather had dropped back into relentless winter mode. The following week, 2760 moved to the London Bus Museum, and on Sunday the 21st of April was formally handed over at the start of its loan. Later that day, though, it was running again, recreating local Route 131 to Hampton Court, along with the first of the 30-foot RMLs, ER880. Here they both are, soon after setting out from Brooklands. The odds and ends section begins with the beautifully restored T-Type 792, approaching and arriving at Brooklands. The first version of the AEC Regal was introduced in 1929, although 792 is from a batch built after the Second World War, which entered service in the country area in 1948. The 31 Leyland Tigers with Wayman bodies were followed by 100 with coachwork by Man Edgerton. TD95 is one of the latter, and here appears on a road run at South Mimms in June 2013. TD95 entered service in May 1949, working routes 201 and 216 from Kingston Garage. It later moved to Muswell Hill, then to Edgware, Tottenham and Uxbridge. By the time of its withdrawal in 1962, it was an underground staff bus based at Edgware again. The arrival back at Potter's Bar. In April 2013, RF4 gave rides around the Detling Showground during the Maidstone gathering. There were once 25 in this first batch of RFs, originally built for private hire work. They were 2.5 feet shorter than later Regal 4s and instantly recognisable by their glass roof panels. RF4 ran in service from May 1951 until 1963, but spent the last 3 years of its operational life going in and out of store. The AEC Merlins were built to replace the ageing RFs. They came in a number of styles, with either 1 or 2 doors and high or low capacity variants. MB90 is a 2-door low capacity bus with 45 seats. Here it is at Turners Hill on the 2013 East Grinstead Running Day. MB641 is an example of the single-door version with 50 seats for the central area. It's on its way to the Potters Bar Garage Open Day. The RP type, or AEC Reliance, was introduced in 1972 to replace Routemaster coaches on Green Line work. RP90, here in Weybridge, was the last of the class. It spent its entire working life at Guildford Garage, mostly on Green Line Route 715. Here it's working showground shuttles at the Maidstone event. SNB 340 is a Phase 2 single-door short version of the Leyland National. It was delivered new to Reigate in 1977 and continued in service until September 1997. Although 2 years younger, LS343 came out of service in 1991. Here it's departing from Hertford. Moving on to double-deckers, this is D142, a 1925 built vehicle with a Dodson body on a Dennis chassis. It was sold on in 1932 and disappeared off the radar until someone found it in a shed in Essex in 1971. 12 months later, it had been restored to working order. In April 2013, it gave short trips around Brooklands Museum. More of the bus's history can be found on the London Bus Museum website. The RCLs were 30-foot versions of the RMC coach. 53 were built from May 1965, and this is the painstakingly restored RCL 2233 arriving at Showbus in 2012. In the same year as the first RCLs, London Transport ordered 8 Daimler Fleet lines for evaluation against Leyland Atlanteans. The Daimlers had bodies by Park Royal. At the time, one-person operation of double-deckers was illegal, but LT hoped to run them like that outside of peak hours by installing a lockable gate at the foot of the stairs, which technically made them single-deckers. The surviving XF3 sets off on the journey from East Grinstead. DMS 1868 at Duxford in September 2012. This vehicle had a 21-year service life in London after delivery in June 1975. A Leyland Titan T1030 arrives at Dormansland. Over 1,100 Titans were built for London. This one went into service at New Cross in July 1984, but moved 3 months later to Bromley, where it remained for the rest of its service life, apart from a short period at Catford. It went into store in September 2000, but a year later was purchased by the T1030 Group. T1101 goes off-road at the Maidstone Show, along with many others, including a Brighton Hove bendy bus, which may be of interest to someone. 1101 lasted in service until February 2001. L1 was the first of the Leyland Olympians to enter service in March 1984, one of 3 trials buses that began life on Stockwell garage routes, working the 170 on weekdays and the 44 on Sundays. Another shot of L1 in Weybridge in April 2013 rounds off the section. The first batch of 30-foot Routemasters were built as an experiment in the summer of 1961. The main build of 500 began much later, in 1965, and this one, RML 2735, wasn't delivered until late in 1967. This is Routemaster in June 2012. RML 2644, formerly of Putney Garage and seriously in need of a repaint, heading for the 2012 show bus on the A505 near Royston. RML 903 was the last of the early 60s batch of 24 buses. This is Wisley in April 2012. RML 2324 appeared in 1965 in Country Area Green. In 1979 it moved to central London, repainted red, and ended its service days in October 2005 on Route 159. RML 898 follows towards the Brooklands Museum in April 2013. This one's first job was a year-long visit to the USA. That's not a real Concorde, by the way, but a 40% scale model. RML 2317, another delivered in green. It went red in 1977, but reverted to green in 2004 when Metrobus acquired it for the Bluebell link. The Thomas Tilling look was applied in 2009. RML 903 again, pulling out of Potter's Bar Garage at the 2013 Open Day and setting off on a spin. RML 2412 crosses the railway at Weybridge. This one entered service in February 1966 from High Wycombe Garage, working Route 363. RML 2735 at the same spot, while heading for the town centre on one of the circular tours from the museum. RM2396 at Alton, wearing very smart Route 12 branding. The bus was secured for preservation in the infamous Ensign Routemaster raffle in December 2004. In the first 6 months after delivery to LT in 1966, it visited Norway and the US. RML 2713 was converted to mostly open top after withdrawal and now works for Premium Tours of London. After bus deregulation in 1994, it became part of the Metroline fleet at Willesden Garage. While based at Holloway in 1996, RML 2699's rear end was wrecked in a crash. It was rebuilt with the rear end and stairs from RM1287 and continued in service until March 2004. On most weekends you will find Routemasters working private hires in central London, like this appearance of RML 2382 at the Tower of London on a wedding special. RML 2272 was withdrawn in April 2003 because of crash damage after the driver collapsed at the wheel. It was bought and repaired the following month by Sullivan's. 10 years later, it's running along Church Road in Potter's Bar. After withdrawal in 2005, RML 2569 was sold to a company in the northeast of England. It returned south in October 2011 and is now based in Kent. RML 2393 is preserved with the garage code of Willesden, where it spent the last 18 months of its working life. Another Brooklands arrival. The first of the RMLs started out as ER880 for Extended Routemaster. Here it's heading back to Brooklands with one of the Weybridge Station shuttles in April 2013. RML 2323 is another regular at rallies around London, an arrival at East Grinstead. RML 2621 was partly open-topped in 2005 while based in Ireland. Today it's back in London, working the Harrods Tour, and here passes a brand new Routemaster in Whitehall. Following upper deck damage, RML 2284 was rebuilt as a single decker. The RMLs round off with 2463 heading for North Weald in July 2013. A short section now which pretty much does what the title says. This is RTW 185 being chased by a Guy Special. RM1033 heads through Alton, followed by Merlin MB90. Genuine horsepower pulls the 1875 knifeboard bus on a short trip around Brooklands. RML 2735 creeps along behind. And as a bonus, an RT follows both of them. RTW 29 negotiates one of the Brooklands roundabouts, closely followed by RM8. At Potter's Bar, RML 2731 arrives ahead of RT 3775. And nearing North Weald, we have a convoy forming. RT 3775. RML 2731. RM349. RM1966. And finally, RM298. We begin our look at the extended family with RTL 139 climbing Caneswood Hill. RT3232 was delivered in 1950 for Green Line routes out of Romford. Today it's part of Ensay's Heritage Fleet. RT1702 has just left the A414 on the final approach to North Weald in July 2013. RT3183 heads for Godstone on London Road, East Grinstead. This one went new to Chelsham Garage in 1950 for routes 408 and 470. RT2688 passes LT7 at Duxford in September 2012. A 1951 delivery to Palmer's Green. This used to be RT3198 when bought for preservation, but it had the chassis of 3238, so was renumbered as such by the next owner. The body was originally on RT3253. Yes, you could write several more books about RT body and chassis swaps, and which chassis changed their numbers. After a 48-year break in Paris, RT2657 was bought for €1 by the London Bus Museum in 2013 and repatriated to Brooklands. Apparently its interior is unchanged from the 1960s. RT1798 heads for Crawley on London Road at Felbridge. In its 29-year service career, the bus was allocated to 11 different garages. RTW 185 is one of 500 8-feet wide vehicles built from 1949. They were the first of this width in the capital and were only allowed into central London after clearance trials on a number of routes in 1950. RT2293, another of the Showbus 2012 visitors. RT2083 skirts the airfield at North Weald. This used to be RT2084, but was preserved with the alternative number. RTL 139 in Church Road, Potters Bar. This one ended up in a bus museum in the Netherlands until repatriation in 1998. RT3238 again at the Brooklands Museum in 2013, passing the genuine Concorde on the site. one of the low-bridge Wayman bodies on the Regent 3 chassis, RLH23, now operated by Time Bus. RT3254 was another vehicle delivered new to Romford for Green Line work. This is Mardley Hill during the Hertford running day. RT3183 heads for West Ham soon after leaving Sevenoaks bus station. RT4317 on the Duxford runway in 2012. And finally, at the east side entrance to the Brooklands Museum, RTL 139 arrives. And then proceeds quite slowly to the western gate to turn so it can run back to Weybridge Station and pick up more visitors. One of the most interesting running days of recent times, on the 27th of July 2013, celebrated the centenary of Tottenham Bus Garage by illustrating Route 76's bus types through the years. Here's the immaculate RM5 running alongside the Bank of England in Princes Street. RML 901 heads down Ludgate Hill by St Paul's Cathedral. RM2217 reaches the southern end of City Road at Finsbury Square. RMC 1461 southbound in Moorgate, with some enthusiastic passengers on the top deck. RTL 453 does its best to suffocate some cyclists in City Road. Top job. We go back to Moorgate for RTW 467. RTW 75 should have worked the first northbound trip of the day, but mechanical problems delayed it by a couple of hours. The unique FRM1 turns into Princes Street at Bank Junction. To remind us of the 76's original terminus, the front entrance RM worked a special trip from Victoria Station rather than Waterloo to Tottenham Bus Garage. Back to City Road for G-Type number 351, a product of wartime austerity, although this one didn't appear until the start of 1946. The oldest bus on the 76 running day was the 1926 built NS1995, basically a horse bus with an engine where the horse used to be. RML 901 makes another return journey past St Paul's. RMC 1461 passes the fort in City Road. New and old on the 76 at Finsbury Square. Volvo Hybrid HV2 chased by RTL 453. But we end the section and the programme with another shot of the Guy Arab running through the City of London once more.